While lying around and eating snacks, Takemichi hears on the news that conflict in Tokyo Manji Gang led to civilian casualties, including Naoto Takebana and Hinata Takebana. That surprises Takemichi as that was his only girlfriend in middle school. Standing on the train station, Takemichi complains how bad his life turned. As the train comes, someone pushes him, and before he gets hit, he remembers Hinata. Suddenly, he awakens in the train and sees old school friends Makoto, Yamagishi, Akio, and Takuya calling him to leave the train. Checking his phone, he sees it's July 4th, 2005, which is exactly 12 years ago. On their way to fight the second years of Shibuya's third middle school, Takemichi starts to recall they indeed went and fought with the second years but gets scared as he hasn't fought in 10 years. They reach Shibuya, but everyone they talk with is either a first or third year and start to wonders if the second years are just avoiding them. Masataka comments he heard they are looking for their second years, but all the second years are on a school trip. Takemichi and the rest then get beaten up and informed they will be now soldiers in the Tokyo Manji Gang. Takemichi recalls that how their hellish days started and the reason he left the town after graduation. Takemichi recalls Hinata and goes to her place as he had even forgotten how she looks. Seeing him beaten, Hinata realizes he had fought again and tells him to stop fighting for stupid things. While leaving, Takemichi hears some guys harassing a younger kid and gets angry. He goes and punches one, then takes and breaks a bottle, telling them he is in a shitty mood and if they don't leave, he will kill them. The kid thanks him and Takemichi gives him an advice to be more confident and not back down. The boy says his name is Naoto Takebana, making Takemichi realize he is Hinata's younger brother. Knowing that he will also die in 12 years, Takemichi tells him to take care of his sister and that he loves her. Takemichi reveals that on the same day in 2017, he fell into the train tracks and ended up 12 years in the past. He reveals that on July 1st, 2017, Hinata and he will die, so he must remember that date and protect his sister. Takemichi then shakes Naoto's hand. Suddenly, he wakes up in the infirmary at the station and sees it's July 4th, 2017. He guesses this was just a dream, but then wonders how he survived the train incident without a scratch. The one who saved his life shows up and wishes to speak with Takemichi. The man reveals he is Naoto and Takemichi had changed his fate. With the information he told him in the past, Naoto was able to save him. Naoto reveals he studied really hard and became a police officer, however, he still wasn't able to protect Hinata, who still died. Naoto then asks Takemichi to help him save his sister. Takemichi agrees to help save Hinata. Naoto explains that his power is time travel and he is able to jump on the exact same day but 12 years ago. Takemichi spends 2 days without sleep in Naoto's room, where Naoto gives him all the information he had obtained about Tokyo Manji Gang and wants him to remember it. As Takemichi can't go back on any date he wants, Naoto tells him that when he gets back in time he needs to meet the Tokyo Manji Gang top 2 members, Manjiro aka Mikey and Kisaki. Naoto states that if those two never met, the current Tokyo Manji Gang would never exist and his sister wouldn't have to die. They shake hands and Takemichi time travels 12 years ago. Takemichi opens his eyes and sees he is in a fight. His opponent punches and knocks him out. Later, Takemichi wakes up and Masataka's gang is annoyed that he went down only after 1 punch. Masataka tells his men to teach Takemichi a lesson and they start beating him up. Takemichi recalls the Fight Club and that he was Masataka's slave, which was eventually the reason he ran away, leaving his friends and Hinata behind. Akon reveals that Takuya will be fighting today. Akon wants to take Takuya's place, but Masataka wouldn't listen. The fight is about to start, but Takemichi interrupts the fight. Knowing that he can't save Hinata by staying a slave, Takemichi challenges Masataka, who agrees to fight him. The first hit from Masataka makes Takemichi realize they have vast differences in power, but he refuses to give up. Seeing Takemichi being beaten, Akon approaches the ring and takes out a knife, intending to stab Masataka. Takemichi tells Masataka that if he wants to win, he'll have to kill him, as he isn't giving up. The vice commander of Tokyo Manji Gang appears and tells Masataka to calm down as he is scaring the crowd. Behind him, Manjiro tells him that he is out of Dorayaki. While Takemichi's friends wonder who he is, everyone else bows down and greets Manjiro, the commander of Tokyo Manji Gang. Manjiro approaches Takemichi and asks for his name. He then informs Takemichi that starting today, he is his friend, which surprises Takemichi. Manjiro approaches Masataka and asks him if he is running the fights. As he confirms, Manjiro kicks him in the face and then proceeds to beat him up. Later, Yamagishi and Makoto are excited that Takemichi manages to make friends with Manjiro. However, Takemichi panics as he went from being slave to Masataka to being slave to a monster. The next morning, Takemichi heads towards school and meets Hinata, who asks him to go on a date before her cram school later today. During class, Takemichi wonders what to do next. He managed to meet Manjiro, but wonders on how to prevent Manjiro and Kisaki meeting. He hears some noise from the corridors and then sees Manjiro entering his classroom. Manjiro wants Takemichi to hang out with them, but Takemichi states he is busy. As they try to convince him, Hinata misunderstands that they are bullying Takemichi and goes and slaps Manjiro. She takes Takemichi's hand and tries to leave, but Ken stops them. Takemichi then places his hand on Ken and tells him to release Hinata as there are things he won't give up ever again. Manjiro tells Takemichi they could have been friends and asks him how he wants to die. Takemichi asks them to promise they won't lay a hand on Hinata. Manjiro states he doesn't care and reaches to punch Takemichi, but stops his hand and states he is joking and he would never hit a girl. While riding bikes, Takemichi recalls that Naoto had told him all the bad things the Tokyo Manji gang does in the future, and he wonders if Manjiro is really the head of such an evil gang. Takemichi asks Manjiro why he liked him, and Manjiro explains that he had a 10 years older brother who was reckless and picked fights with much stronger people, and Takemichi reminded him of his brother. Manjiro intends to make a new era for delinquents and wants Takemichi to come with him. While walking home, he passes a group of guys and feels he had seen one of them before. Hinata invites Takemichi to her place so that she helps him study. Takemichi is excited to be in Hinata's room as it's the first girl's room he is in. Suddenly, fireworks start and Hinata takes Takemichi to the roof to enjoy the view. He reaches to hold her hand, but then realizes he is holding Naoto's hand and returns to the present. In the present, Takemichi wakes up and starts crying. Naoto realizes his theory about handshaking is correct and guesses something must have changed since Takemichi returned. However, learning that Takemichi shaked his hand by mistake, he gets angry. Naoto reveals they learned something new about his time travel. Takemichi returns exactly 12 years in the past, and if he spends a week there, when he returns to the present, a week and past as well, and during that time his body is in suspended animation. Takemichi reveals he met Manjiro and suggests they go and see him as he wants to learn from him why Tokyo Manji gang aka Taman has changed. While they go over documents to look for a way to find Manjiro, Naoto sees someone he doesn't recognize. Akun had become a member of Taman's upper echelon. Naoto finds it strange as in his timeline, Akun got arrested for stabbing Masataka, and after his release he was just a no-name punk. Takemichi finds Akum's old phone number and calls him. Akum ends up answering and Takemichi arranges a meeting with him at the bar Akum is running. As they meet Akum, Takemichi can't recognize him at first as he is missing his pompadour, who tells him he has been waiting all this time for him to show up. Akun wishes to speak with Takemichi in private and they head to the rooftop. Takemichi comments Akun must have a good life with all the money, but Akun comments there are things you can't buy. He knows that Naoto is a cop and that he is Hinata's little brother. Akun then reveals he was the one that pushed him into the train tracks. Takemichi refuses to believe that he would try to kill him, as he is his friend. Akun reveals that he is Kazaki's soldier and everyone in Taman obeys him as they haven't seen Manjiro in years. Akun reveals that Manjiro changed after Ken died and asks Takemichi to go back in the past and save him. Save everyone. After that, Akun jumps from the rooftop, causing Takemichi to start crying. On the other end of the rooftop, Kazaki is seen listening to their conversation. Takemichi tells Naoto to look into the day Ken died as it was Kazaki who turned Taman evil. Takemichi then decides to save everyone. Naoto reads the news reports on Ken death. On August 3, 2005, he and other 50 people were in a biker gang fight and he ended up being stabbed and died. The reason for the fight was inner strife between Manjiro and Ken's faction. Takemichi finds that hard to believe as Ken understands Manjiro more than anyone else. Hearing that, Naoto guesses there is likely more to it. He states that Takemichi's current mission is to save Ken, which will result in Manjiro not changing and Akun and Hinata not dying. As they agree on the mission, Takemichi and Naoto shake hands. Takemichi opens his eyes to find himself in a karaoke room with a half-naked girl on him. As the room phone rings and Emma picks it up, Takemichi runs shocked. Later, Ken calls Takemichi and tells him to come to Musashi's shrine as they are gathering there, and Hinata decides to go with Takemichi. As they arrive at the shrine, they see multiple people with bikes and two start yelling at Takemichi to leave as this is Taman gathering. Takashi, the 2nd Division captain, takes them to Manjiro, who is glad that Takemichi came. Ken comments he shouldn't have taken Hinata with him, but Takemichi explains he didn't knew it was this kind of gathering. Ken then calls Emma and tells her to protect Hinata, as she is Takemichi's girlfriend. Emma tells Hinata that she isn't interested in Takemichi. She tried to seduce Takemichi hoping Ken will get at least a bit angry, but he only cares about Manjiro, bikes, and fighting. The meeting of Taman starts and Manjiro wants to know the gang opinion on the conflict with Mobius. Pa and Pain push Takemichi angry for what happened with Masataka. Takashi explains that Mobius leader Asanai messed with Pa's blood for something stupid. Asanai beat up his blood and raped his girlfriend in front of him, and took his money and beat up his parents and siblings too. Takashi explains that Taman runs Shibuya, while Mobius, Shinjuku. Manjiro asks Pa what he wants to do. Pa is aware that if they fight, Taman won't go unscathed, but he is really pissed and wishes to fight and kill them. Manjiro then yells they are going to crush Mobius on August 3rd, the Musashi Festival. Takemichi thinks about the situation. He knows from Naoto that on August 3rd, Ken dies during internal conflict in Taman, but now on 3rd they are going to fight Mobius. Unable to think of anything, Takemichi decides to be Ken's bodyguard. The next day, Ken declines. Takemichi wanting to know more about Mobius and returns to the present. He tells Naoto that he doesn't believe Manjiro and Ken would end in a conflict and ask him to track Asanai in order to ask him what happened between Taman and Mobius. Asanai initially refuses to talk about Taman fight, however he denies Naoto's accusations that he ordered Ken's death. Asanai reveals that they didn't kill Ken, but the incident was a trigger that led to Taman's internal conflicts, and all was planned by someone. Naoto believes Asanai as he looked quite shaken and realizes that someone used Asanai and wished to split Taman. Takemichi then returns to the past in order to warn Manjiro. Takemichi wakes up on a bike with Akun and gets happy that Akun is still alive. He asks him if he have any dreams, and Akun reveals he dreams of becoming a hairstylist. Takemichi then leaves and goes to Manjiro. Takemichi asks Manjiro to call off the fight with Mobius, stating that someone is plotting the fight, but he can't tell him how he knows. Pa then pushes Takemichi aside, warning him that he will kill him if he says anything else. Manjiro states that they are going to fight Mobius as he made up his mind already. As Takemichi states he won't back down, Ken stops Pa, stating that maybe they need to look more into Mobius. Manjiro then wonders if Ken is against Taman. Asanai then shows up and states they should respect as he's 2 years older, which makes Pa angry and he rushes at him, but Asanai knocks him with a punch and jokes that they need to rename to Middle School Baby Alliance. Asanai comments that he heard they are picking a fight with them, and that he decided to bring the fight to them and calls the rest of the Mobius, who surround the Taman member. Looking at Asanai, Takemichi can believe this is the same person he met in the present. Asanai then hits Takemichi as he felt he was looking down on him. Pa then interferes and wishes to fight Asanai, and Manjiro tell the rest to just watch. Asanai takes on Pa and easily beats him. Pa apologizes to Manjiro for being worthless, but Manjiro states he didn't lose. While Mobius members mock Manjiro and the rest, he approaches Asanai and knocks him out with a single kick. Asanai manages to get up and takes a broken bottle, but as he rushes towards Manjiro, Ken manages to easily stop him. Ken then announces that Mobius will be under Tokyo Manji Gang. As they hear the police approaching, everyone runs. Takemichi recalls Asanai's words that this was the trigger, but is surprised everything ended so peaceful and wonders if he is missing something. In that moment, Pa stabs Asanai in the back, which shocks everyone. Pa apologizes to Manjiro and tells him to run as he intends to turn himself in. While running, Takemichi loses consciousness. Takemichi wakes up in the hospital with Emma next to him. He wonders about Manjiro and Ken, and while crying, Emma explains that they ended up fighting due to Pa, and Taman is now divided into the Manjiro faction and the Ken faction. Takemichi spends 3 days at home. His friends visit him and tell him that Taman is in bad situation and is likely to split, but then start laughing and explain that Ken and Manjiro fight often. In that moment, Ken shows up bringing watermelon and shocks everyone. As they eat it, Ken tells them that Pa will be held for a year and Asanai is alive. As Ken leaves Takemichi's home, he sees Manjiro in front, and both wonder what the other one is doing there. Both state they are there to see Takemichi, who is their friend. As they continue to argue, Takemichi tries to stop them, which annoys Ken. Manjiro then takes Takemichi's bike and throws it at Ken, who dodges and the bike breaks on the wall. Takemichi gets angry for Manjiro and Ken breaking his stuff and yells at them to stop. As Takemichi tries to punch Manjiro, he dodges and Takemichi falls into the trash. Ken apologizes and asks Takemichi to calm down. Takemichi explains that they don't care about those around them and their fight will split Taman. Manjiro informs Takemichi that he has shit on his head and then runs away with Ken as Takemichi stinks. A bit later, after Takemichi washes his hair, he joins Manjiro and Ken, who have made up and apologized for their behavior. Manjiro states he forgot for what they even fought about, but Takemichi guesses it's due to Pa, as even though he was guilty, Manjiro still wanted to help him, while Ken wanted to honor Pa's resolve. With Manjiro and Ken no longer fighting, Takemichi realizes he changed history and Ken won't die. On August 3rd, Takemichi, Hinata, Emma, and Ken go to the festival together. As it starts to rain, Takemichi and Hinata run to hide under a tree. Hinata loses balance, but Takemichi manages to catch her. While staying together, Takemichi realizes it's a good moment for a kiss and attempts to kiss her, but his phone rings. Yamagishi tells him to warn Ken to watch his back, as he heard that some that support Manjiro wants to kill Ken, and even though Ken and Manjiro are good now. Takemichi hangs up the phone and apologizes to Hinata and asks her to wait for him. He goes around looking for Ken, but finds some of Tommen members with a Mobius guy who gives Masataka a blade, and Masataka stating that he will kill Ken. One of Masataka's guys finds Takemichi and brings him to him. After beating him up, Masataka ties Takemichi with a duct tape and leaves him. Some moments later, Hinata finds tied up Takemichi and removes the duct tape from his mouth. Takemichi starts crying, stating that he tried his best, but in the end he couldn't save anyone. If he was like Manjiro or Ken, he could have beaten them. But as he is worthless, he couldn't do anything. Hinata then kisses him, saying it was her first kiss and she gave it to him as he is special to her. Hinata frees Takemichi and he decides to go and stop Masataka. Takemichi encounters Takashi and informs him that Ken will be attacked. However, Takashi already knows, but is surprised it's Masataka and not Pain. Takashi states that everyone came to an agreement that they couldn't do anything about Pa except Pain. Elsewhere, Pain finds Ken and Emma. While looking for Ken, Takashi explains that Pain believes Tommen abandoned Pa and teamed up with some Mobius members to take out Ken. Seeing Pain, Ken knows that he isn't happy with what happened and prepares to fight him, but suddenly a Mobius member attacks him with a bat from behind. Takemichi recalls Naoto words about Ken's incident happening on a parking lot and heads towards the parking lot. They find Ken fighting numerous Mobius members. As he is getting tired, he sits on the ground and tells Takashi that he leaves things to him. A moment later, they hear a bike and recognize it. Manjiro gets off his bike and realizes he was called somewhere else so that Pain can be with Ken and break Tommen, but wonders who tricked him into doing that. Shuji reveals himself and introduces as the temporary leader of Mobius. Manjiro attempts to kick him in the head, but Shuji manages to block it. Shuji reveals that they intended to destroy Tommen by having them fight internally, but this is also fine as he can kill Manjiro by his own two hands. Shuji then calls 100 of Mobius members and warns them to not run or he will chase them and beat out all of their teeth. Takemichi realizes that he changed the events and a new conflict rises. As Mobius prepares to fight the 4 Tommen members, the rest of Tommen arrives on bikes, ready for a fight. As the fight starts, Takemichi goes around looking for Ken, wishing to protect him from Masataka. While beating down Mobius members, Manjiro approaches Pain and asks him why he attacked Ken, even though they have settled things down. Pain doesn't accept that Tommen gave up on Pa and starts punching Manjiro. Pain knows that Manjiro can beat him in a single hit, but wonders why he isn't fighting. Manjiro pulls Pain's head towards his and tells him to look at him, and if he ever smiled about Pa getting caught. Manjiro asks Pain to keep hitting him until he is satisfied, but he doesn't want to fight with his own family and wishes Pain to return to them. Takemichi eventually spots Masataka and decides to stop him, but then sees he holds a bloody blade while repeating he did it. Takemichi finds Ken stabbed and informs Manjiro, who attempts to get to Ken, but Shuji gets in his way and engages Manjiro in a fight. Seeing Ken is still alive, Takemichi puts him on his back and tries to carry him to a hospital. Hinata and Emma see him and inform him that they have called for an ambulance. While waiting for the ambulance, Takemichi sees Masataka and his gang approaching. As he gets scared, Ken awakens and thanks him for helping him and tells him to take Hinata and Emma and run. He goes to Masataka and states that he isn't running away and is getting his revenge. Takemichi attempts to punch Masataka, however, he stabs him in the arm, stating that this isn't a one-on-one, but an execution. Takemichi attempts to hit Masataka, but he knocks him back. Takemichi then tackles Masataka and bites him. As Masataka hits him trying to make him let go, Takemichi manages to get on his back and starts choking him. As he doesn't let go, Masataka eventually loses consciousness and Takemichi wins. Masataka's gang attack, but moments before they reach Takemichi and Ken, Akun comes out and punches one of them, making him drop his knife. Makoto, Takuya, and Yamajishi also come out and stand in front of Ken and Takemichi. They start fighting Masataka's group, but are easily getting beaten up. Hearing the sirens, Masataka's gang decide to run, leaving Masataka behind. Hinata and Emma lead the medics to Takemichi and Ken. Meanwhile, Tommen manages to beat Mobius with only Manjiro and Shuji still fighting. Shuji is impressed by Manjiro's stamina. However, a man comes to pick Shuji as the cops are coming. While everyone is running, Shuji tells Manjiro that he is about to witness the creation of the most sinister biker gang alliance in Kanto, Valhalla, and reintroduces himself as the first vice commander of Valhalla. Ken thanks Takemichi for saving his life and tells him to take care of Manjiro. In that moment, he gets cardiac arrest and the doctors start to give him CPR. They reach the hospital and immediately take him to the operation room. One by one, Takemichi's friends and Tommen members arrive. Manjiro tells them that Ken is a man of word and he promised him that they will rule the world together. Thus, he won't die and they need to believe in him. As the operation ends, the doctors come out and inform the group that the operation was a success and Ken is alive. They head out to tell the rest about Ken, however, Pain states he cannot face them. Takashi tells him that they know he did it for Pa's sake, but the one that was thinking the most about Pa was Ken. Learning that, Pain agrees to apologize to everyone. Going outside the hospital, Takemichi realizes it's past midnight and it's August 4th, which means Ken didn't die on August 3rd and his mission is success. The rumors of the fight have brought more rumors and Takemichi has become a legend for stopping the fight. As he enjoys his newfound fame, he don't want to go back to the present. He goes to visit Ken but ends up being scolded for how lame he looks and acts. Ken hands Takemichi Taman's uniform and states that it's from Manjiro and that it belonged to him from when he first formed Taman. Takemichi is free to decide if he wants to wear it, but Manjiro wanted Takemichi to have it as he saved Taman. Ken then tells Takemichi to go see Manjiro on the roof, where he probably sleeps. Going on the roof, Manjiro wonders why Shuji wanted to cause inner conflict within Taman and why he used Masataka to kill Ken. He finds it even more mysterious that Takemichi realized all that before anyone else and tried to stop it. Manjiro wonders who Takemichi is. As Takemichi tries to come up with an answer, Manjiro mocks him for his lame outfit and thanks him for saving Ken. Takemichi decides it's time to return to the present. He goes to Hinata's place to see Naoto. Since he got Hinata in a mess, he tries to make up for it and gives her a 4-clover necklace. As Naoto shows up, Takemichi shakes his hand and returns to the present. He believes that since Ken is alive, Kisaki won't become number 2. Manjiro won't change due to Ken's death. Akun won't die and Hinata won't get killed. As he returns in the present, he checks his phone, but can't find Naoto in his contacts. He sees a notification reminder for scheduled meeting in the salon and wonders what it is. Going at the salon, he finds Akun working there and wonders if he became hairstylist. Akun states he just started and is only an assistant. Takemichi gets happy that he manages to change the present. He then receives a call from unknown number and realizes it's Naoto, who realizes that Takemichi changed the present and wants to go see Hinata. As he rides in Naoto's car, Naoto tells him that the incident that killed Hinata did not occur in the current future. They arrive at Hima's apartment with Takemichi excited, saying that it is a dream come true. Suddenly nervous, he tells Naoto that he cannot see Hinata, and that Naoto should visit her alone, as she does not know that he saved her, and they are now strangers to each other. As he prepares to return to his life, he bumps into a grown-up Hinata, who remarks that he shows up at the weirdest times. Eventually, back in Hinata's apartment, Naoto decides to leave, but Takemichi desperately begs him to stay as he is extremely nervous. Hinata laughs at Takemichi's reaction, remarking that he hasn't changed, whilst Takemichi notices the 4-leaf clover necklace Hinata wears. Naoto decides to bring the group elsewhere as an attempt to lighten the atmosphere. In the car is equally as awkward as in the apartment. Suddenly, Naoto is being called by the police. He decides to leave his car to Hinata and will come back for it tomorrow. Hinata decides to stop the car at a car park, and she asks Takemichi to walk with her. Hinata tells Takemichi that the park evokes memories, specifically a memory of her with someone she liked on Christmas Eve. Takemichi replies that he cannot believe that anyone would dump her, and Hinata, crying, wonders why she was dumped. Takemichi comes to the realization that Hinata is talking about him. Overwhelmed with this information, he rushes to the bathroom confused as his memories do not align with this information. As he walks out of the bathroom, he encounters a man who remarks in surprise that Takemichi is not in the car. Though confused at first upon seeing the man's hand tattoos, Takemichi realizes that the man is Shuji and gets an uneasy feeling from this. He rushes to Naoto's car, where Hinata is sitting in, just in time to see a car driving into it. Feeling horrified, Takemichi rushes towards the crash. The driver of the car turns out to be a gravely injured Akun, who asks Takemichi why he is not in the car. Akun says the same things as he did during his previous encounter with Takemichi in the future, wondering when things went wrong, how he came to fear Kazaki, and implores Takemichi to save everyone, while Takemichi screams in despair as the events turned out the same. Akun's car explodes and Takemichi rushes to Hinata, who is still alive. As Takemichi attempts to get Hinata out from the car in order to escape the impending fire from the explosion, she thanks him. Hinata is gravely injured and has lost all feeling in her legs. Crying, Takemichi crawls into the car, hugging Hinata and confessing that he has, and will always love her. Feeling the approaching fire, Hinata pushes Takemichi away, smiling at him, before the car explodes and implodes into flames. As the fire roars in front of him, Takemichi swears to save Hina and find a future where she is alive, no matter how many attempts it takes. He resolves to become the top member of Taman in order to do this. Takemichi approaches to Hinata's shrine and decides to pay respects towards her. Takemichi froze and shed a tear, with Naoto crying in agony about Hinata's death. Naoto tells Takemichi that he researched Akun, who was married and had children in the current future. In reaction to this, Takemichi wonders why Akun still killed Hina. Naruto concludes that Akum's family was used to force him into doing it, as they are currently missing. Naruto asks about Akum's last words, and upon hearing that they were the same as after a previous time leap, he says that their actions were in vain, as they were unable to escape fate and change the future. Takemichi tells him that he is wrong, as Ken's death must not have been the deciding factor in turning Tommen bad. He concludes that they must get to the root of the problem and that Tommen must be destroyed. He will become the leader of Tommen to do this. Later on, Naruto contacts Takemichi and brings him to Tokyo Detention Center, telling Takemichi that Ken is no longer in Tommen, but is not dead. Instead, he is on death row. They have come to the jail to get information from Ken. As he steps into the visitation booth, Ken remarks that he has not seen Takemichi in a long time and is happy to see him doing well. Takemichi finds out that Ken is on death row because he committed murder and asks Ken how this happened, as well as what happened to Tommen. Ken says he does not regret his actions and that he knows he deserves to be in prison, as the current state of Tommen is because of him not stopping that one guy. As the visitation time ends, Ken orders Takemichi to leave Tokyo for his safety, as Kazaki will likely try to kill him again. Just as Ken leaves, Takemichi asks him why Kazaki would target him. Ken says that Kazaki's love for Manjiro turned into hatred, and that Kazaki wants to take away everything Manjiro holds dear. Back at Naruto's apartment, Naruto replies that Kazaki currently holds one of the most important positions in Tommen, the acting leader. He believes Kazaki is responsible for the repeated murders of Hinata, but says that the police cannot find any leads to Kazaki. Takemichi says that though he wants to defeat Kazaki, he has not met him in the past yet. Takemichi decides to become the captain of the 3rd Division in Paw Place. Naruto says that this is a reckless idea, but trusts him to successfully fix the future, shaking his hand. As he travels back to the past, Takemichi wonders how the future turned out like this and vows to fix the future. He arrives in the past, sitting in a bathhouse. The water near him begins to bubble and Manjiro playfully pops up from the water. They leave the bathhouse, where Mitsuya, Yasuhiro, and Nahoya waiting outside. Manjiro tells Takemichi that they are going to nominate a new 3rd Division captain. As everyone gather, Ken announces they will be choosing the new 3rd Division captain. Everyone wonders who would that be. Manjiro calls for the new captain to come out and Takemichi starts to wonder if he means him. Kazaki then goes to Manjiro and sits with his back towards him, which angers the rest of the members. Kazaki's man then announces that the new 3rd Division captain is Kazaki, which shocks Takemichi as he recalls everyone telling him it's Kazaki's fault. Some of the members recognize Kazaki as being part of Mobius and are against it. Manjiro explains that they will be facing Valhalla, and to defeat them, Tommen needs to grow and announces Kazaki as the new 3rd Division captain. Knowing this is the worst outcome and what will happen with Hinata, Takemichi gathers courage and punches Kazaki. Ken yells at him for interrupting the ceremony as he isn't even part of Tommen. While wondering what to do, Baji steps up and attacks Takemichi but is stopped by Takashi. Manjiro asks Baji what is he doing there, as he wasn't allowed to come at their meetings due to certain internal conflict. Baji then states that he will be joining Valhalla and quits his position of 1st Division captain of Tommen. Hisaki asks Takemichi if he prefers the face or the guts. Takemichi chooses the guts, but in that moment Kazaki punches him in the face. Takemichi later awakens with Manjiro next to him. Manjiro wonders if Takemichi dislikes Kazaki and comments that it's hard growing an organization as when he brings new blood, old one leaves. Manjiro created Tommen in his first year of middle school along with Ken, Takashi, Pa, and Baji. Manjiro then asks Takemichi to bring Baji back from Valhalla as he really likes him. Takemichi agrees but wants something in return, Manjiro to kick Kazaki out of Tommen. Manjiro agrees and tells Takemichi to bring Baji before they fight Valhalla to prove that he is more useful than Kazaki. Manjiro is aware that Kazaki is bad news, but he needs his strength, and if Takemichi fails, Manjiro tells him that he will kill him. Manjiro then yells at Takashi to show up as he knows he is eavesdropping. Manjiro then states that Takemichi is joining 2nd Division under Takashi and is now officially a member of Tommen. Takemichi finds a charm on the ground and a photo inside. He realizes this is a photo of the founding members of Tommen, but sees a 6th person he can't recognize. Elsewhere, Baji meets with the person from the photo Kazutora. The next day at school, Akun and the rest approach him, commenting they heard he got into Tommen and wish they joined soon as well. However, Takemichi comments it's not as great as it sounds. Takemichi explains that he needs to bring back Baji or Manjiro will kill him. In that moment, Kazutora enters the classroom looking for Takemichi and wondering if the school is already over. Makoto tries to intimidate him, however Yamagishi recognizes the dragon tattoo and stops Makoto, explaining it's Kazutora. Cheerful, Kazutora hugs Takemichi, commenting that he couldn't believe that someone 1 year younger from him and from same school is part of Tommen. Kazutora then takes Takemichi and wishes to take him to Valhalla's hideout, Stepping out of the classroom, Takemichi sees two people with broken legs. Kazutora explains they are his most trusted kohai, but he broke their legs. Takemichi can't believe what he is hearing and realizes that going with Kazutora may get him in serious trouble. However, as this is a chance to meet Baji, Takemichi decides to go. They reach an abandoned game center and Takemichi notices a graffiti of a headless angel. As they enter, Takemichi feels the atmosphere being quite different than in Tamen. Takemichi then sees Baji beating someone and wonders what is going on. Kazutora states it's a test of faith, as changing from Tamen to Valhalla is like changing a religion. Baji is currently beating his first division vice captain in Tamen, his most trusted retainer. Baji stops and asks Shuji if it's enough. Takemichi starts to realize he may be the next person they do a test of faith. In that moment, Valhalla members start cheering to kill Takemichi. Shuji explains that Baji, one of Tamen's founding members, wished to join them, and that will greatly help them. However, as he may be a spy, he told Kazutora to bring a witness. Shuji asks Takemichi what did Baji say on Tamen's last meeting. Takemichi tells him that Baji said he is joining Valhalla and that Tamen is his enemy. Kazutora reconfirms if Baji wishes to join them, as they will kill Manjiro, and Baji states he will help them out. Shuji then welcomes Baji as a Valhalla member. Takemichi asks Baji why a founding member is betraying Tamen, and Baji states that Kazutora is also a founding member, which surprises Takemichi but recognizes him from the photo. Baji states that Kazutora has a grudge on Tamen and he won't forget it. In 2003, the newly formed Tokyo Manji gang enjoys life and drive their bikes, but Manjiro is too slow with his moped and makes them ride slowly, waiting for him. Later, Kazutora takes Baji with him and comments that Manjiro's birthday is coming up soon and they will be getting him a present, a CB250T bike. Reaching the bike shop, Kazutora states they will be stealing it. Baji tells him that Manjiro won't be happy getting a stolen one, but Kazutora doesn't intend to let Manjiro know the truth. They see the bike and realize it's not new, as it has custom features and is likely there for maintenance. As they cut the chains, Kazutora goes outside to open the shutters. The owner then appears, realizing they are trying to rob him. As Baji panics and wonders what to do, the owner approaches him and recognizes Baji. He then recognizes him and wonders what he is doing there, and the man explains it's his shop. Baji then sees Kazutora running with a weapon and yells at him to stop, but Kazutora proceeds and hits the man in the head. Kazutora states he didn't have a choice as he saw their faces, but Baji explains this is Manjiro's older brother, which surprises Kazutora. As Manjiro's brother isn't breathing, Baji wonders what to do. While Kazutora panics, Baji decides to call an ambulance. Kazutora is in a state of shock and mumbles he did it for Manjiro, so this is Manjiro's fault and thus he needs to kill Manjiro. The police arrests Kazutora and Baji, and as they are escorted out, Manjiro shows up and asks Baji what is going on. Baji starts crying and apologizes to Manjiro, while Kazutora still mumbles he needs to kill Manjiro. After explaining what happened in the past, Baji says that he avoided juvie thanks to Kazutora defending him and have been waiting for Kazutora to get out. Hearing the story, Shuji immediately accepts Baji and gives him a Valhalla jacket. Shuji then tells Takemichi to tell Manjiro that Tamen and Valhalla's fight will occur in an abandoned car lot. Later in bed, Takemichi thinks about the upcoming battle and that there is no way for him to bring Baji back. The next day, while heading towards school, Takemichi wonders what he will tell Manjiro. A beaten-up guy calls him to come and sit on the swings with him, but Takemichi doesn't recognize him and decides to continue. The guy then mentions Baji and that he is Chifuyu, 1st Division Vice Captain. Takemichi then realizes it's the guy that Baji was beating yesterday. Chifuyu tells him he should be thankful of Baji, as Takemichi ruined the new 3rd Division Captain ceremony, and if it wasn't Baji, he would have gotten it worse. Chifuyu then explains that Baji beat him to join Valhalla, but not to defeat Tamen, but expose Kazaki. Takemichi and Chifuyu then meet with Manjiro and Ken. Ken and Manjiro explain that they are aware that Baji and Kazutora didn't intend to kill his brother, but Manjiro's heart still can't accept it. Manjiro had forgiven Baji, but he will never forgive Kazutora for killing his brother or Baji for going over to Kazutora's side. Manjiro wonders why Takemichi brought up Baji's vice captain and not Baji, and what he wants to do. Recalling the promise he made, Takemichi tells Manjiro that he wants to become the head of Tamen, and he will make Manjiro acknowledge that someday. As they leave, Chifuyu offers Takemichi that he will help him become Tamen's head if he helps him with Kazaki. Takemichi agrees and they shake hands, sealing their new partnership. To find a connection between Valhalla and Kazaki, Chifuyu decides they go visit Asanai. He tells them that when he first met Kazaki, he thought he was a dull brat. Kazaki offered him to join him and he will help him take over Tokyo. Asanai ended up doing what Kazaki told him, and in a year, he went from a moron who could only fight to the commander who ruled Shinjuku. Kazaki had planned everything and pushed Pa to create a reason to fight with Tommen and let Asanai take all the blame. Kazaki intended to kill Ken and take the number 2 spot in Tommen. After abandoning him, Kazaki now has a new sword, and that is Shuji. Shifuyu realizes that Kazaki is Valhalla's leader. Takemichi wonders what to do and decides to return to the present. In the present, Takemichi takes Naoto and they go visit Ken. Takemichi asks Ken if he remembers Valhalla and if the leader is Kazaki. However, Ken denies it and states the Valhalla leader is Manjiro. He proceeds to explain that Valhalla was a gang put together for Manjiro. Takemichi can't believe it as Manjiro is the head of Tommen. Ken then tells him to recall the bloody Halloween 12 years ago when Tommen was taken out by Valhalla and the new Tokyo Manji gang was created with Valhalla as its parent organization. Takemichi is surprised that Tommen lost with the invincible Manjiro, but Ken states they lost because of Manjiro. On that day, Manjiro ended up killing Kazutora. Ken explains that Manjiro was never caught for killing Kazutora since Kazaki had prepared a patsy for him. Manjiro then fell into darkness and Tommen was overtaken by Valhalla, expanding into giant organization with Manjiro as commander and Kisaki as acting commander. At Naoto's place, Naoto explains that on bloody Halloween, Tommen ended up losing to Valhalla, all because Manjiro ended up killing Kazutora. Takemichi then decides to save Baji, which in return will cause Manjiro to not make that mistake of killing Kazutora and also stop Kazaki's plan. Deciding on the new mission to protect Baji, they shake hands and Takemichi returns in the past. A day before the battle, Shifuyu takes Takemichi to meet with Baji. Shifuyu questions Baji if he found anything about Kazaki. He explains that he did his own research and found out that Kazaki is bad news, so Baji no longer needs to stay in Valhalla. Shifuyu wonders if Baji will really become Tommen's enemy tomorrow. Baji tells him to not trust anyone who isn't his friend and tomorrow they will crush Tommen. Later, Takemichi meets with Manjiro and tells him that he couldn't bring Baji. He states it isn't his fault. Later, during a meeting of Tommen, Manjiro explains that they will be fighting with Valhalla tomorrow and they won't show mercy to traitors. Manjiro then hypes everyone and tells them to help him out win tomorrow and bring Baji back. On October 31, 2005, the day of the battle, Takemichi sees a large group of people at the place of the fight and wonders what are they doing there. Shifuyu explains that they are there to see Tommen versus Valhalla as the winner would be one step closer to running Tokyo, thus all the delinquent bosses are here to watch. Hansen then called both groups and Tommen and Valhalla appear. Hansen states that if the fight sucks, he will be taking them both down. As representatives, Ken and Kazutora are called. Hansen asks them if they will be fighting 5-on-5 with their best guys or an all-out melee with everyone. Ken states that Valhalla want this fight, so they must decide, but has one condition. If they win, they will be taking Baji back. As Ken insists on that, Kazutora gets angry and knocks out Hansen, commenting that they haven't come here and play house or something, but to kill them all. The two gangs then run towards each other, starting a fight. Takemichi is in trouble, losing his fight, but Takashi saves him. Recalling Hinata's death, Takemichi gets a hold of himself and starts fighting back. As the fight proceeds, Takashi tells Ken that Valhalla consists of older and bigger members, and they are twice as many as Tommen. While the captains can hold their ground, the weaker guys are getting owned. Ken goes and protects a weaker member. As more of the weaker guys start to collapse, Ken sees Takemichi running and yelling at Valhalla members to come and fight him. As Takemichi yells he will crush all, the weaker guys get motivated and stand up to continue fighting. No longer needing to protect them, Ken goes on offense and starts beating Valhalla members one by one. As he dispatches a large number of enemies, Ken turns towards Shuji to continue their fight and sends him flying a couple of meters with a single punch. Manjiro follows Kazutora, who climbs on a pile of used cars. A Valhalla captain launches a surprise attack, but Manjiro manages to block it. Kazutora brought with him the strongest fighters while he was in juvie, Chanbo and Chom. Kazutora then explains he lured him here as his footing won't be stable, and he won't be easily launching his deadly kicks. Chom is surprised that Manjiro is easily able to fight against him and Chom, but they manage to grab him and restrain him, giving Kazutora a chance to come and hit him in the head with a pipe. As Manjiro falls, everyone is surprised and Kazutora believes they have won. Manjiro is bleeding but manages to get up and asks Kazutora if he is his enemy. Kazutora then recalls a moment when Manjiro told him that he belongs to him along with his pain and suffering. Kazutora then tells Manjiro that he went to juvie because of him and naturally Manjiro is his enemy. Angry, Manjiro asks did he kill his brother because he was his enemy. He then hits Chom with the back of his head and rises his leg while Chanbo is still holding him and then kicks Kazutora in the head. He then falls on his knees and stops moving. As everyone sees that, the Valhalla members guess that he is exhausted and decide to use the chance to defeat him, and a small group of them led by one of Valhalla remaining captains leads them towards Manjiro. Takemichi looks around asking if someone could help Manjiro, but as he sees everyone is busy fighting, he decides he himself needs to save Manjiro and heads towards him. While running side by side with Valhalla members, Takemichi constantly gets hit by them, but he stands up and continues to run. The Valhalla captain Shoji is about to attack Manjiro, however, Kazaki steps in and knocks him out. Seeing that, Takemichi recalls that he had seen Shoji with Kazaki in the past. Kazaki announces that his division will be taking care of protecting Manjiro. Hearing that, all Tommen members praise Kazaki and comment that he is stealing the spotlight. Takemichi realizes that even if they win, it will be great for Kazaki, and if they lose, they will be absorbed into Valhalla, and either way, Kazaki wins. In that moment, Baji comes and hits Kazaki with a pipe, stating that he's taking him down. Kazaki's man, Hamada, then pushes Baji down, and as Kazaki gets up, he tells him to kill Baji. Chifuyu gets in front of Baji, asking him not to fight Kazaki, as taking him down now will mean that he is betraying Manjiro. Baji punches Chifuyu, telling him to move and that he only kept him because he could fight. Baji was about to start climbing the cars again, but Takemichi comes and charges him, holding him and yelling at Chifuyu that they need to protect Baji. Baji hits Takemichi, but he manages to fight the pain and keeps holding Baji. However, Takemichi then realizes that Kazaki isn't the one that kills Baji, but Kazutora. In that moment, Kazutora appears behind them and stabs Baji in the back. Takemichi pushes Kazutora back and asks Baji if he is okay, and Baji confirms it's just a scratch. Chifuyu jumps on Kazutora. Takemichi is glad that he managed to save Baji, and recalling the events until now, he states the only thing left for him is to crush Kazaki and become the top of Tommen. As Baji head towards Kazaki, he tells Takemichi to take care of Manjiro. Baji then faces the 50 members of the 3rd Division by himself. Kazaki realizes that Kazutora failed and tells Hamada to be careful. Hamada believes the 50 men they have would be enough, but in that moment he gets knocked out by Baji, who then points a pipe at Kazaki. However, in that moment, Baji starts spitting blood and falls on his knees. Takashi tells another member to call an ambulance. As Manjiro stands up, Takemichi realizes that Kazaki is trying to provoke Manjiro into attacking Kazutora. As Manjiro steps down, he says the fight is over. Shuji tells him it's not something he can decide, but in that instant, Manjiro kicks and knocks out Shuji. Shocked by his overwhelming strength, most of Valhalla members run away. Manjiro then approaches Kazutora, who tells Manjiro that one of them must die. In an instant, Manjiro punches Kazutora and starts beating him up. As he proceeds to beat him, Takemichi recalls Ken's words from the future and realizes that he isn't changing anything. While being beaten, Kazutora recalls when he killed Manjiro's brother and how he ended up blaming Manjiro and wanting to kill him. But Baji told him to not say such things and that he will be with him until the end. Kazutora realizes that Baji was indeed always with him and accepts his death, waiting to join Baji in the afterlife. Baji then manages to stand up, yelling Manjiro's name, who then stops and turns to him. Baji then walks past Manjiro and tells Kazutora that he won't die, so he must not worry. Saying that he won't die by his hands, Baji takes out a knife and ends his life. Chifuyu and Takemichi go to Baji, who at his final moments tells Takemichi that Kazaki is the enemy. He tells him that after the fight with Mobius, when Pa stabbed Asanai, Kazaki asked Manjiro to let him be the 3rd Division captain in exchange of getting Pa out of jail. Baji tells Takemichi that in a way, he is like him and tells him that he is leaving Manjiro and Tommen to him. Then he takes his last breath and dies in Chifuyu's hands. Hearing Chifuyu's cry, Manjiro proceeds to beat Kazutora, stating he will kill him. As Takemichi cries that he wasn't able to do anything, he recalls Baji's words that he leaves Manjiro and Tommen to him. He then goes between Manjiro and Kazutora. Manjiro tells him to move or he will kill him too. As he doesn't move, Manjiro punches Takemichi, who then says that Baji didn't want this. Manjiro kicks him, telling him to not speak for Baji. Takemichi yells that Baji is dead and that he risked his life for Manjiro and Kazutora. He did that because he didn't want Kazutora to feel responsible for his fate and because he wanted Manjiro to forgive Kazutora. As Takemichi took off his jacket, a charm fell off. Manjiro picks up the charm and asks him from where he got it. Takemichi explains he picked it up at the last meeting. Manjiro recognizes the charm and realizes that Baji had kept it all this time and recalls how they created Tommen. Moments later, they hear police sirens and everyone decides to leave. Kazutora tells them to leave as he will remain with Baji as it's his fault and wishes to settle it. As Tommen starts to leave, Kazutora tells Manjiro that he can't ask for forgiveness, but he will carry the burden for the rest of his life and bows down. The battle ended as Tommen's victory, but Kazutora is arrested. Later, the conflict became known as the Bloody Halloween. At Tokyo Juvenile Detention Center, Takemichi and Ken visit Kazutora. Ken then gives him a message from Manjiro that he is still part of Tommen and that he forgives him. Later, Ken tells Takemichi that Manjiro also have a message for him. He has something important to talk with him and wants him to be at the next gang gathering. He recalls he failed to do anything on the bloody Halloween and Baji died and Kazutora was arrested, but Manjiro didn't kill Kazutora. He wonders if that is enough to stop Kazaki from taking over Tommen. The next day, at Tommen's gathering, Takemichi shows up with his new Tommen jacket. Ken formally welcomes him to Tommen and starts the meeting. Ken warns him that this is going to be an important meeting for him, so he must be prepared. Manjiro then shows up with Shuji and Shifuyu. Everyone in Tommen is wondering what is Shuji doing there. Manjiro announces their win over Valhalla and thanks everyone for giving their all in the battle and lets Shuji say a few words. Shuji then explains that Valhalla didn't have a leader for a long time and after their defeat, they will fall under Tommen and becoming part of it. Tommen members are excited how big they are becoming and start cheering for Tommen. Shuji also explains that someone brought the two gangs together and calls Kazaki. Takemichi starts to worry that Kazaki will again manage to take over Tommen and it may result in worse future. Manjiro states that while they gained something from the battle, they lost Baji and then leaves Shifuyu to say a few words. Shifuyu thinks it will be too much for him to handle being the 1st Division captain. Thus, he talked with Manjiro for days and finally, they came to a conclusion. Shifuyu himself is going to decide who he will follow and then calls Takemichi, wanting him to become the 1st Division captain. Recalling the future and all the promises he made, Takemichi starts to believe it's not over yet and he still can change Tommen, and then accepts. Takemichi then goes to shake Naoto's hand and returns to the present. He finds himself in the DDD rental shop. Takemichi then sees his expensive clothes and new hairstyle in the mirror. Exiting the shop, a guy Takemichi can't recognize waits for him and tells him to come in the car. In the car, the guy tells him they are going to his place. Wondering what to do, he decides to call Naoto, but realizes he doesn't have his phone number. As they arrive and Takemichi comes out of the car, more scary guys greet him, but he feels having seen 2 of them. One of them complains they are slow and tells Yamagishi he had to keep Takemichi in line, making Takemichi realize the guy was Yamagishi. Takemichi also realizes the 2 other guys are Makoto and Takuya. As they get into the building and everyone calling him boss, looking how luxurious it is, Takemichi wonders if he got into a winning future. Reaching his apartment, he sees Shifuyu waiting for him, who tells him that the upper echelon is having a meeting and they need to go. Takemichi can't understand what is going on and Shifuyu reminds him he is Tokyo Manji Gang's top executive officer. Going on to the meeting, Takemichi sees unfamiliar faces but recognizes Pa, who comments that not everyone is there yet. He sees new faces as Shuji explains that their IT business and few others were searched by the cops 3 days ago, which should mean there is a traitor among them. Pa doesn't believe there is a traitor. As they argue and insult each other, Kazaki comes and everyone bows and greets him. While it's rare for him to show up on those meetings, he explains he had something to take care and then approaches Takemichi and requests to speak with him and Shifuyu. Going in another room, Kazaki asks them if they hate him and recalls it was around 12 years ago when Baji died and it was all his fault. Kazaki confessed that he arranged the bloody Halloween and used Shuji to sweet-talk Kazutora and form Valhalla. Kazaki explains he didn't intend to kill Baji and apologizes to Shifuyu. He is fine if they keep hating him, but wants to take a toast to Baji. As they drink, Kazaki then confessed that he actually lied and used Kazutora to kill Baji and is about to finish what he started. Takemichi's head starts to spin and he loses consciousness. Takemichi later wakes up tied to a chair next to Shifuyu. Kazaki then kicks Shifuyu, asking them to confess that they are the traitors. Shifuyu stated he only wanted to chase Kazaki out of Tommen. As Tommen is rotten right now, he wanted to clean it and admits he is the traitor. He tries to explain that Takemichi doesn't have anything to do with it, but Kazaki doesn't believe it. He goes and shoots Takemichi in the leg, wondering why he is acting all surprised. Kazaki then points his gun at Shifu's head and asks him if he has final words. Shifuyu asks Takemichi to listen and tells him that in the last years Manjiro had disappeared and Ken was executed, and before they knew it, they got involved in messed up shit. Shifuyu then tells him he leaves Baji's feelings and Tommen in his hands, and in that moment Kazaki shoots him in the head. Takemichi can't believe that Shifuyu is dead and starts crying even more. Kazaki yells at him if that's all he's got. As tears appear in Kazaki's eyes, he says goodbye to Takemichi, his hero, and pulls the trigger. The end. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more.